Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 9th day of June 2025. Welcome to our show. Today, I have Vicky Davis on with the Technocratic Tyranny. Daniel Richard was supposed to be on, but he went in the hospital last night. So if you can pray for him, that would be a great thing. Kind of an unexpected change, but that's okay. I know we had a lot to talk about today, and I expect him to be back at it again, probably next week to finish up what we were talking about. So anyhow, morning, Vicky. How you doing?
Good morning. Fine, thank you.
Just looks like, go ahead.
Oh, I said I'm just kind of lost, and not lost, but buried in all the information I have pertaining to what's going on in Los Angeles.
This is kind of a nutty thing going on, but I just want to let everybody know that, you know, chaos and problems are going to come on this world. We just have to be willing to maybe stand unwavering. Let's see how things play out, because it's a myth that we're ever in control. People think they're in control of their surroundings. They want to control things to get rid of the uncertainty. Well, guess what? One big event can pretty much mess that up substantially, and there's not a lot we can do. So we just have to stand strong with each other. And, you know, like you can't contain a hurricane. You can't contain tornadoes. Sometimes you just got to go with the flow, see what happens, put your trust in God, and hopefully things will not go as poorly as what we make up in our mind. There was a verse that I looked up this morning that I thought was fairly substantially important. It is Jeremiah 29. Let's see if I can get to it. I wasn't going to pull it up right away, but maybe we'll do that right now. Jeremiah 29. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call on me, and I will come and pray to me. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and will bring you back from captivity. I will gather you from all the nations and places where I've banished you, declares the Lord, and will bring you back to the place from which I carried you into exile. The rest of the chapter is actually pretty good, talking about, you know, it's a theme that comes up over and over again in the Bible, of putting down vain imaginations, having your brains work, okay? And this ties into a study I'm doing right now on critical thinking and being able to think when things go poorly, because things are going to go poorly, okay? As the world is kind of fallen, and so we can kind of plan on things not always going the way that we see ideal. But going back to the fact that when things go wrong, we learn a lot. So not necessarily to think that it's the end of everything every time something goes a little bit off, or that it's not going as we planned. But looking at what's going on around us, the first step is stop and think and assess before jumping off the cliff like a lemming. You got to stop and you got to think, you got to assess. Very rarely do any decisions need to be made that quick. Once in a while it does, but unless you're a fighter pilot, probably not. So with that said, I think it's an important thing to just stop, take a breath, walk around the building a few times. And when I say that, it's in the situation in your mind, and assess so that you can make good decisions and you're not being pushed by fear like most people are. Most people are very pushed by fear. So anyhow, did you find what you were looking for?
Yeah, I did. I can't bring it up. Apparently, I haven't moved it over, but everything that's going on in Los Angeles, they must have decided to flip the switch. Now, last week we talked about world regions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how the Americas is a world region, and I'm talking about North, Central, and South America as a world region. Well, the global central planners that are building world government under the auspices of the United Nations, basically designated the Americas as a world region for world government. And the Mexican people have been taught that, but the American people have not. The Americans have been taught to not think, but to use emotion and to follow. And
That's
so
exactly what I was talking about, is that we have to stop and think before just running right off the cliff.
I'm not sure that they know how, because the schools
True enough.
and our society has conditioned people to not think, but to be followers, and that's why everybody belongs to a group. So many groups, and they're all working against the interests of the American people, but the people that are group followers are clueless to that fact. They focus on one little issue and they never look at the big picture of what's going on.
Right. Well, when I saw a map, and I don't remember where I saw it exactly this weekend, but they had the globe kind of planned out. And in the United States, this goes back to your regional areas in the United States, but it was very interesting to see. I'm going to just take this one right here. They had a bunch of cities right along the coast here. They had an area around Michigan and the Midwest. They had one over here in the West and Northwest. So they actually have cities within these regions that were planned out in this. There was a woman that gave a wonderful talk on it. It'd take me too long to find it while I'm online today, but it was fairly crazy. Now I'm going to take that and we're going to go to this one right here, because this is, guess what? It's going to be the summer of protests again, just like BLM. And I mean, it's going to happen. Pretty extra sure. They're deploying everything over in LA right now, the troops and such. So hopefully they've got things under control. I do believe that they infiltrated BLM the last time that burn, loot, and murder got unleashed on our country. But check this out. This is where they have on Flag Day, the 14th. We rise up, says no kings. Okay, and look at they've got like here are this is pretty well showed where the UN states were going to be. Let me see if I can go out a little bit on this. Let me see if I can, because I know Alaska. Oh, we've got them in Puerto Rico. We've got them. Oh, look at this is interesting. So no kings is global. We've got Europe. Here you go, right like that. And then let's jump back into it. So they're asking people to sign up for this sort of nonsense. And you know what? Being the person I am, you know what? I may just reach out to this group, and I believe that they're probably paid protesters by the globalists. I do not believe that there's no way that this is organic. This is
absolutely paid, not.
These are paid protesters. So let's just look where I am here in Michigan. And all these areas here, isn't that special? Let's see how close they are. And it would be interesting to see. All right, so Michigan, here you go. And go back out and look at the rest of the map here and see what else we have. This is what they have planned for us, guys. And here are the centers of where the deployment centers. Austin, Texas just came up with something interesting, which is interesting that we don't have one right in Austin, but we've got one over here in Houston. That's interesting. Huh. Let's take a look at this a little bit, because there's a whole bunch of information coming out on Austin right now. Keep your eyes open on Austin.
Yeah, Texas is very, very important. In 1983, Ronald Reagan signed a treaty with Mexico, creating an international zone on the border. And the idea was supposedly environmental cleanup, but it was actually much more than that. That was like the first step towards integrating the United States and Mexico with the objective being ultimately the Americas as a continental structure under the world government system. So if you understand the history of Europe post World War II, what they did is to, using the idea of trade agreements, they integrated the individual nation states of Europe into the European Union. Now, it took, they started that in the 1950s and they finally completed it around 1990, where Europe is ruled under the European Commission. Well, they had the same plan for the United States, for the United States to be ruled under initially a North American commission, but ultimately the idea of a commission of the Americas. And the Mexican people being, especially the ones that are not in Mexico City, not being the best educated, they were led to believe that they were going to reconquer the southern parts of the United States and take it back. And the area is called Aztlan in this scenario. I do have a map of it somewhere. God, I just have too many things open. Okay, here it is. Back in the early 2000s, there was a protest in Chicago. And I'm going to read to you what the sign is from these Mexican protesters at that Chicago rally. Okay, it says, "Why are we here protesting? Number one, we are here as the indigenous people of this continent. We are not foreigners to this continent. Number two, we are here to confront the racist squatters on our continent who dare to call us foreigners. The Nazi-like SOS and the Nazi-like Minutemen. Number three, 500 years of European crimes of trespassing, theft, murder, false borders, and genocide do not make our continent a European continent." Okay, so, and that's really the riot in California and Los Angeles is part of this same movement. They think they are going to reconquer the United States and kick out the white man, the European. And so that's what they're acting on. Now, the American people were not at all privy to any of this because the media keeps the American people in a thought box, if you will, where we don't know just about anything except maybe for the last 10 years or so. They don't let the American people know about anything else going on in the world. The American people are just mushrooms. And so now it's all coming to fruition. And it was really the Clinton administration, Clinton Gore, that really facilitated this integration of the three countries, U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the ultimate plan is to disintegrate American national sovereignty and Canadian national sovereignty, and unbeknownst to the Mexicans, their sovereignty. So they're saying they don't want a king, but they're doing exactly what was planned for them to do to defeat the United States. But if they think they're going to retake the Americas and have it be, ruled by indigenous peoples, they need to think again. Actually, they need to think from the beginning, because that's not going to happen.
Well, it's really, I don't know, it comes to the conditions of hearts, this desire to be in control and fight over and coveting what other people want. This is a big problem. It's huge. It's not just in a nation state type situation. It's on an individual basis. You can see the spiritual implications of it everywhere. And I think that this is a problem until we confront this. We need to figure out how to live in peace, or else we're going to be absolutely fighting. If we go to civil war, it's never, ever, ever going to stop.
That's true, until one side or the other is wiped out.
And that's exactly what is the only option at that point.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why it's so important to be able to define the problem. There are not that
Right.
many people in the United States that can actually define the problem from a historical perspective on forward. Almost nobody does that.
Right. And you know what? It's like it repeats. It always repeats, and it goes back to the same issue. I want what you have. You took something, or you offended me in some way. So now I have the right to go after you and seek vengeance. And it never stops. It's too bad. But when you boil it right down, it's an issue of good versus evil. I listened to a video the other day, and they were talking about what happened with Obamacare and a health database that basically, as soon as a woman was pregnant, that they were tracking not only the woman but the child, what color eyes it has, what color hair the child has, everything, and was handed over to human traffickers to traffic that child and that family, which I at this point in time, it's not out of the realm of possibilities.
Well, okay, let me tell you something about the database of your medical records. That was a function of the public health system. They bypassed our medical system because doctors have licenses and there are laws about who can practice medicine and whatever. The public health system is a function of the United Nations, World Health Organization. And that's the way they came at us. And it was the World Health Organization that pursued the idea of a nationalized health and medical records system. And they went by way of the hospitals doing that. Okay, so at every front that this war on us is being fought, they used a strategy of a lateral attack. Okay, rather than going at our healthcare system directly, which they couldn't do, they went through public health. And that's why it was the public health system that declared the COVID pandemic. It wasn't the medical system at all. And it was the public health system that ran the whole gambit.
Well, and then they weaponized all these agencies against everyone. The Department of, Health and Human Services and such. That's what Governor Whitmer did. Is she weaponized these agencies as her little police? But they also weaponized individuals as well as businesses to enforce their policies.
Okay.
I refused. I wasn't going to do it.
And I refused too. I testified at a meeting of the public health had a meeting. And I went, and in my statement, I reminded them of the Nuremberg trials. You try to force any kind of medications on people, and we're going back to the Nuremberg trials. And they hung doctors in Germany for the forced medical treatments.
Well, and the nurses were giving shots to lethal injections to babies. There's a whole bunch of information on it. People don't even understand, or maybe they don't. Maybe I know some people here understand, but the vast majority of people really don't know. Is back to the mushrooms that you were talking about. They really don't know what's going on because people are too busy playing. They're playing instead of taking care of business. And all of us need to check ourselves and how much time we're playing.
Yes. Well, for about I don't know how long a generation is. What is it, about 20 years? For several generations, the American people have been conditioned to not think. They have been miseducated, uneducated. And when did that all start? It started with the entry of computer systems. When we were between two ages, 1950s, there were no computer systems in the business world out. They were only in the universities, and researchers were developing computer automation. It was 1959 when the first business application came into being, and it was the Bank of America and their check processing system, with the electronic ink on the bottom of the checks, and the ability to read the checks and post the amounts to the accounts. Prior to that, it was all done by hand, hand posting. So it was between the age of no automation and the beginning of automation. There was a group out of the National Academy of Arts and Scientists, that did a futures project. The futurists, trying to project what the future was going to be with computers as opposed to where they are now. Because I can tell you for sure that people did not understand computers. They didn't understand the power of computers and what they could do. And it just happened to be that my mother worked at Bank of America in the 1950s. And then when we moved back up to Idaho, she went to work for a bank. And they were just in the beginning of putting their CDs on the computer, certificates of deposit on a computer system. So when I was about 13 or 14 years old or so, I went down to where my mom was working, and her boss happened to be there. And he gave me a demonstration of their computer process that they had in that little office, where they were key punching the cards to put the CDs on the computer. And what it was, they had the check sorter machine that sorted the checks into their transit numbers. That card reader copied those checks onto a hard drive, and a telecommunications line, they called it a Watts line back then. It was a specially conditioned telephone line. They transmitted that data to the main branch in Salt Lake City. So I grew up knowing about computers, just, an idea of them. And that's what I wanted to do for a living when I grew up, because it was so fascinating. And that's what I did ultimately end up doing. I became a computer systems analyst programmer. But the vast majority of people in the country had no idea about anything to do with computers, as businesses were making this transition from manual processes, doing things by hand, to putting them on a computer and computerizing the process. And for my dad's whole life, he never had any idea what I did for a living. He couldn't have explained it to you for anything. But it was during that transition stage where essentially what I believe happened is that the futurists at the top universities, I mean, we're talking Harvard, MIT, the top universities, the futurists did an analysis of what the future was going to be. And I swear to God, what they did was go from the fictional idea towards planning the future and implementing it through basically turning our universities, the top scientists, into fictionologists, for lack of a better word.
That's a great word.
Yeah, using fiction to communicate with people. And I think somewhere in the generations, the knowledge that what they were doing was promoting fiction was lost. And so you have people working on things like climate change, and they might really actually believe there is climate change. Now, I wrote an article called The World Game of Chaos, where I lay this all out. And one of the principal futurists, actually, I didn't find him when I was researching futures, but I remembered him from the 1970s in California. His name was Buckminster Fuller. And
Interesting guy.
very interesting, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, but also when people are too brilliant, I mean, there's kind of a fine line between brilliance and insanity. And Buckminster Fuller, was at that edge. And he came up with an idea of the completely recyclable universe. And he proselytized all over the world about the completely recyclable universe. And
Can you explain that a little bit?
yeah, he said that we have extracted minerals and done everything. We don't need to do any more extraction. We can just recycle what we have. And basically protecting the environment as it is, because we can use what we've already extracted.
Well, that goes with manufacturing deficit in the United States, and what they're doing right now is they're chopping up all of the steel and the recyclable steel that we have in the United States, and they're shipping it off to China, and then they have to ship it back. So answer me this. It's like, riddle me this one. How come the products in China are so inexpensive when they're getting recyclable? We've got two passes across the ocean to get the products, to get the materials to them, to bring it back. And they're still beating us on price. And the question there is why? It's because they're funding it to break. It's another way to break the United States. So I'm kind of up on the tariffs. I think the tariffing should be utilized brutally to level the playing field, and then try to bring manufacturing back to the United States. All we do is we come up with ideas. They take our ideas, they build the machines over there, and then they sell it back to us. That's not sustainable. We have to manufacture in the United States. And the reason why, one of the biggest reasons, is they have no regulation. They can spew anything they want into the environment. And if people think it stays over there in China, they're nuts. It's going all over the place.
Yeah. Well, and they did the same thing with India before that. They were sending our World War II ships over to India, where they were being scrapped and repurposed into different things. Like the one image that I have is of manhole covers.
Oh,
they're
still doing it too.
Yeah, they still are, because they were trying to build the world government, redistributing economic activity. and they used our economy and the productive capacity of our economy to get the buy-in from other countries. There is, and there has been, since the end of World War II, when they established the United Nations, a plan for world government. There really is a plan, and you can look up World Federalists.
All right.
There is a website, and there are they have the Montreux Declaration on there that was written in 1947. And if you, it's WFM something, World Federalist Movement dash IGP, I think.
Got it.
Okay. Now look for the Montreux Declaration and then read those 6 principles.
Okay. Let's see if we can find it here.
Maybe I can.
Mondal?
Montreux. M-O-N. Let's see.
See if we can find it. Oh, there it is. Got it.
Okay.
Bam. Mad skill. Find things on the fly.
Yeah, just scroll down just a little bit and you'll see it says such a federation must be based on the following principles. Now, if you read those 6 principles.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Universal membership. The world federal government must be open to all peoples and all nations. Number 2, limitation of national sovereignty and the transfer to the world federal government of such legislative, executive, and judicial powers as they relate to world affairs. Number 3, enforcement of world law directly on the individual, whoever or wherever he may be within the jurisdiction of the world federal government. Guarantee of the rights of man and suppression of all attempts against the security of the Federation. Okay, that one, item number 3, is where the Mexicans think that they have a right to our country, to take over our country. Because the world government considers the Americas, and it's because of our membership in the United Nations, they consider our government part of the continental governing structure. And so Mexicans think they have a right to just, take over that area of California, and it's called Aztlan, Aztlan, and you can do a search on it. Okay. All right. Now, number 4.
Here it is. This is what came up when I did that search. So going back to, I don't know, like sacrificing human beings, the Aztec culture and such.
Yeah.
Like a bad idea to me, just saying.
It's very interesting. I've seen news stories that indicate there are cults that actually believe in human sacrifice.
Oh, they absolutely do. The Satanists believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing it. It goes back, it's biblical too. It goes back through time with all the sacrifice that was going on to Baal and Moloch and the Baphomet and all that sort of thing. The ancient cultures were absolutely brutal and did a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And we just do it now under a different name. The name we do it under now is abortion. And the biggest problem that I have with it is the amount of human beings that are actually sold through this process, because especially late-term abortions, they don't have to be dead. Quite honestly, I think that there's enough evidence out there that they're actually selling live babies under that guise, not just baby parts, which is really disturbing and bone chilling when you put the pieces of that together. I mean, they'll use whatever they want in order to get people to do their dirty work. It's just like getting the the population to push these agendas forward. Not only do they get institute them, but they use people who are basically clueless to push these things forward. And it sounds like a great idea. Let's do this. What an awesome headline. This is where I go, blink, blink, blink. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, that's the purpose of the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations. They organize for a purpose. They sell their constituency on an idea, but the actual purpose may be something entirely different.
Right. It's fake. They're fake altruists. So they take things that normal people hold dear to us and they weaponize that against us to try to get us to jump on board. And then once you're in these cults, because they're kind of like a cult mentality, no matter what, it's like, do you know what I mean? It's like a cult. I'm going to do air quotes here. Right. And, and then they get people to jump on board with them. I don't understand that. I just don't understand it.
Well, you have to.
No, I wasn't. That's where we go. That signal, guys. I'm doing air quotes here. Don't be stupid and go to grab your torches and pitchforks on me. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that's where we go back to the 1960s and the development of the system of futurism and fictionalizing for people messages to get them to support this cause, that cause, whatever cause. And people, from that time forward were taught to feel. They were taught to emote rather than think logically.
I can give you some awesome experiences that I watched this firsthand. In not necessarily in a satanic sense, but it kind of was, and it was in a Christian, there's my air quotes, a Christian church. And it went along with something called the Brownsville Revival. I actually got kicked out of a church for this because I wouldn't go along with it. And I called them out for what it really was. They actually, that lasted, the manifestations and signs lasted for just a short period of time. And then all of a sudden, everything disappeared like it always does, because it was just absolutely demonic. When you have women getting on, and I saw this firsthand, okay? When you have women going on the altar of a church, disrobing because they're shaking and they're whatever else they're doing. And I saw some really crazy, horrible things. And then the pastor came to me because he didn't think I was obedient enough. Can you imagine that? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty much disobedient to this entirely because this is a demon. This has nothing to do with God whatsoever. Yeah. And show me proof where this is of God, because I'm not buying it. And at that point in time, I got a 3-page letter told me never to come back to the church, but I could bring my kids and drop them off. That was going to happen.
Yeah, sure.
That was going to happen. Sure it was. There was a whole bunch of us that were kicked off of that. But I think people need to really think, just because a title says something, you really need to be grounded in what is reality and not in emotional response, because that emotional high, that emotional high that they know how to elicit in human beings is so addictive and so toxic to people that they don't even realize that they're bound and gagged before they've, got them basically pinned against the wall with no way out.
Mm-hmm. Well, fortunately for me, I was kind of inoculated against religious indoctrination because I grew up in a Mormon community, and Mormons are very clannish. If you're in a Mormon community and you're not a Mormon, you are an outsider, an outcast.
Well, that's the way a lot of it works. You have to basically swear an oath to them. And, it's very, unfortunately, it's very cult-like. But the Bible says that at the end times and I believe we're pretty close, actually, whatever that means. But if you don't agree with everything people say, you are voted off the island.
Yeah.
That's
Well, and that's why, I'm kind of an obstinate person.
that's why we get
uh,
along
uh,
so well.
and so there was no way that I could join and 100% adopt their entire belief system. I just couldn't do it, and that's true of all religions. I just can't buy into anything 100% because I'm always thinking and analyzing things. But I'll tell you what, Christians are they are the best followers in the world. They're taught to be followers and just, do what the leader says. And that's true of Catholic, I don't care, name the religion. Catholics, LDS, Protestants, Methodists, doesn't matter. That they condition people to follow. So, okay, now let me
Yeah.
go back to this
We
reading
could
this
truly
month.
we could be on this subject for a long time, because all I can say is all you have to do is look at all of the churches that closed down during COVID. This is not what God intended for us. We are supposed to stand and be the ones there to serve, not close down because of our tax exempt status that's threatened. If they threaten you with something like that, they threatened a lot of us like that. And a
Yep.
lot of us just said, you can shove it. I will not be your foot soldier for your evil agendas. Not going to do it. I'm going to say what needs to be said, and the consequences are what the consequences are. But to be able to stand and do that, very few people are wired like you and I are.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
And that's unfortunate that they want to fit in and go along to get along. They want to fit in with what's comfortable or what they know, even if what they know is evil. They will literally stay focused and stay loyal to that, even if they know it's wrong. Well, I'm going to choose the lesser of the evils. Freaking evil is still evil. How can you possibly say that? To me,
Yeah.
that's just shocking to me. Absolutely shocking.
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead. Let's go back to this.
Okay, number 4, creation of supranational armed forces capable of guaranteeing the security of the world federal government and its member states. Disarmament of member nations to the level of their internal policing requirements. Now, I don't know, are you familiar with the legislation that was passed in the 1960s for complete and general disarmament of the United States?
Why don't you fill us in on that? I know some of it, but you're going to know it better.
Okay. There was legislation passed in the 1960s that did call for the complete and general disarmament of the United States. And the State Department produced a bulletin 7277, basically laying out the plan for the disarmament of the United States. Okay, now the idea of a global police force, I'm sure everybody is familiar with the idea that the United Nations has an idea for a global police force, and the all of the military actions that the United States has done from the 19 well, you know, the Korean War was a UN war, right? Um, have been for the purpose of the world government. And see, I forgot what I was going to say. I do have a web page on my website, The Technocratic Tyranny, on the complete and general disarmament of the United States.
If I'm looking for a link,
Yeah.
so let's go ahead and look at that.
And
Because,
I want to give credit to this for this research to Bernadine Peters. She's the one that found all of this. Okay, I just found it. If I can now find your
Well, I think this is a good discussion because of the critical thinking part of it. That not everything is as it appears. So, like when we're talking about President Trump, there's a lot of things he's doing right now that I think we should all say, wow, maybe he's teaching us what not to do. Not necessarily to follow it, but to actually to disagree a little bit and have that civil discourse. And now that no kings group, they're correct. We should have no kings, but they're using words to create chaos and getting into elicit an emotional response, and they're doing it for both sides.
Yeah.
It,
Well,
it's not one-sided. They're not seeing people be disgusted with no, this because we should have no crowns and Trump is a king. What they're doing is they're getting both sides inflamed so that both sides will create a conflict, and hope and pray is what they're doing. Only they pray to Satan that they create a civil war.
yeah. Well, they tailor the propaganda to, and this is, I'm just going to be brutally frank here. They tailor the propaganda to the IQ of the audience.
Right. That was one of the first things I was told when I was running for governor is remember, you're talking to people who have the intelligence of a third grader or less.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
exactly.
I was like, what? I was kind of, honestly, because I'd never been in politics, I was kind of shocked. But I was, they're wrong. I think they are wrong. There are
Yeah,
some very intelligent people there, but that's how they get to the primal state of human beings is they make it very emotional. They pit you against you. You can always unite a people against a common enemy. And so now that's what they're doing. And I think President Trump is amazing bait to get people to move one way or the other. That doesn't mean I always agree with what, at face value for what he's doing. It's like, I'm like, okay, there's got to be another reason other than what he's saying. Just like looking at all the proposals and such. And just because they say it, there's got to be another reason why this is being put out there. That is the beginning of research to find out, not just jump. Think about it this way. We have to learn to critically think and make decisions again, be engaged in the decision making process that could end up in life or death because we're in a war right now. So just because somebody says something, oh, yeah, do we follow it? No, we don't. We sit there and we look at the bait for a little bit, no matter what it is. Axe my tax is a good example of it. Sure, we want to get rid of property taxes, but they're giving you one solution, for gosh sakes. And it's not about getting rid of taxes. It's just shifting taxes. And unless you realize that you're being used, you're going to be part of the problem. It's like all of the stuff that they've come out with that is purely just a distraction to keep people busy. And there's never a counterpoint to it. And if you do, they come up with emotional reactions like, oh, don't ever vote for Donna Brandenburg. Why? I don't know why, but because she disagrees with us. It's crazy. Or, oh, don't listen to Vicky Davis. Why? I don't know, because maybe she's saying a counterpoint. The counterpoint is exactly what we have to listen to and figure out what's really going on, no matter who puts it out there.
That's right. Because the war in the United States is not between Republicans and Democrats.
Exactly. They're both controlled by the CIA.
Laid that out, keep you in a framework of thinking. What the real war is the war between national sovereignty and world federalism. And I'll tell you right now, I am totally opposed to world federalism. I'd like to see them kick the UN out of the United States and to make war on the UN. Take that.
Oh yeah, charge them for crimes against humanity and everything else they've done. How many people that have been involved in these organizations have been actually involved in human trafficking?
Well, they're doing everything bad because they are making a war on culture. Okay, the United States had a culture. And what the UN is doing as one aspect of the war for world federalism is to make a war on culture, because it's actually culture and education that keeps people together. Okay, they took education out of the picture. We don't educate people anymore. And they're using the like the Mexican population to break down culture. And all of these, they call them diaspora communities, where they're importing Muslims, they're importing Russians, all of these groups of pods of people, if you will, pods of different cultures, trying to create a multicultural society.
Which is incredibly racist. You want to talk about racism. The racism that is under the guise of DEI, as well as the multiculturalism. It's like, you know what? It focuses on. I had a discussion with a professor about this who was a Chinese guy teaching American government, didn't understand how, I mean, and I went up and I talked with him one day, and I said, okay, I said, I've listened to your what you said here for how many weeks, and I said, I want to tell you that you're doing the opposite of what you think you're doing. I actually did that. And I said, will you give me 20 minutes? He said, yeah. So I laid it out for 20 minutes, and he never said a word. He got done and he's like, wow, I really learned something today. I agree with you, which was really shocking. And then he gave me an A in the class, and never even looked at my final. But the reason why was because I was outlining the class, and then I gave my notes, so he knew I knew it. But the craziness about having to be in a group. What about yourself? Talk about breaking down the individual. You're not this enough, or you're not that enough. You're not Italian enough. You're not Jewish enough. You're not Palestinian enough. You're not gay enough. You're not flying this flag or that flag or the other flag. This whole thing is so toxic. It's unbelievable. And I'm sorry, we're a nation. The nation of the United States is one nation under God, indivisible. What did they violate right there in the pledge? What have they violated in the Constitution? In what have they violated in the Bible of being a non-respecter of persons? That's a huge problem that we have going on right now. Being a respecter of persons, using people, using agendas and such. It's incredible. It's incredible to me. And it's incredible to me that people don't see it.
Yeah. Well, they don't. Yeah, they don't stop and think it. But what happened does go back to computer systems. And in the 1980s, mid 1980s, there was a group of Democrats that were called the Atari Democrats. They wanted to protect the Atari. The Atari was really like the first little computer system.
And that was fun. System. Pong was fun. It was like amazing when that came out.
Yeah. And, well, that was, I think, the beginning of Commodore. But
that was Commodore. That's right. I remember playing Pong on Commodore. One of my cousins got one of the first models out, and we were totally obsessed with playing Pong.
Yeah. Well, the Democrats wanted to protect the invention of the computer system from the rest of the world. So they formed a group that was called the Atari Democrats. And then as time went on, in 1984, I think it was Al Fromm, he formed the Democrat Leadership Council, which was a group. It basically started with the Atari Democrats, but then evolved from there. So you had powerful Democrats that were partnered with the tech industry. And so what happened is that basically the Democrat Party just threw off their traditional base of the working man. Democrats always supported the laborers, the unions, so forth. Well, when the Democrat Leadership Council was formed, they partnered with the tech industry. But their base did not realize that. I don't know who realized it at the time, except probably insiders to the political parties. But anyway, their entire platform during the Clinton administration, it was the implementation of computer systems that were national and global in scope. And it was 1993 when there was the attack on the World Trade Center. A couple years after that, Clinton formed a commission on critical infrastructure. And what really ultimately that became about, what became about as a result of that, was to link all of our critical infrastructure together, using computer systems, allegedly to protect our critical infrastructure. But as it turns out, it was to capture our critical infrastructure.
It's always a lie. They lie, they lie, they lie. It's the opposite of what we're told. And you never get to that unless you actually do the research on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about that commission, but the more I have looked into it, they redesigned our whole economic system through the efforts of that commission. The commission was comprised of environmentalists, government, and business leaders. No representatives in there for you and I.
Well, and when you look at, I mean, I think that this is important because when you look at the history of what these people are capable of doing, which is a global death machine, their hospitals are killing fields, and the only people that get services are the ones that actually serve them. I watched a documentary from a Chinese doctor who was basically, I don't know, they commandeered him in his life, and he was at gunpoint. They brought him out to a camp, the Waggers, and it was really, really sad. But they said, okay, you need to we're going to have you remove this kidney. He was standing behind the wall, and a shot rang out, and they brought him. They basically shot somebody that was a match for someone, and the guy was still alive, and he took the organs out while the man was alive.
Yeah.
And this is a real thing. I saw one time, I saw a child that was basically on the table getting, it was a video, and I don't even know how it came up. It was through a news feed, but at any rate, they took the organs out of this child live. This is not something that most people have seen. They're not even aware of it, but it's happening, and it's happening on a global scale. So if we're in the surveillance state, where and they make this global government, it's not going to end well, because all they're going to keep around them are those people who are useful to them, and anyone else who is a useless feeder or is not a match for something, because they just see us as a commodity. That's all they see us as.
Yes.
They want us gone. Unless we serve them, we will be eliminated. And with the surveillance state and everything else they have going on, that this I believe was their plan, and this is the direction that it was going. However, I'm gonna propose something here, that including the DEI nonsense that's out there, I don't have a problem with any people, no matter who they are, and I'm going to clarify that. I have friends who are Jewish. I have friends who are and who are Arab. I have friends who are Albanian and Serbian and Chinese and American and Mexican and Puerto Rican. I mean, I don't have any problems with any people anywhere. I think people are wonderful. It's the governments that have forced us into ideological pens in order to fight each other, and who's better and who's in control. I have a real problem with that.
Well, and the objective overall, as long as you keep in mind what the objective is, to create a world government. Okay, all of the manipulations of people in every country, name a country, all of the manipulations are to condition and move people to accept the culture of world government.
Or yes, and the culture of politics, the culture of the emotional NGOs, as you say, all of this. Everybody picks their little thing and they stay divided rather than let's go back to being individuals. I think that's good. If you're in a group or a cult, no one ever knows you. If people think that they're alone in a group, well, it's because you are. Basically, you've basically traded out who God created you to be in order to capitulate to the overall agreed upon statements. And boy, if you say something that's against that, off the island you get voted. And then the ostracizing starts happening. It's the same playbook over and over and over again, and it's amazing. So Curtis brought up that the Sierra Club, the UN will allow manufacturing in the U.S. if it involves infrastructure for the surveillance group or the surveillance grid and the Small Arms Treaty of 1965. There's all sorts of this stuff going on. We are going to have to get together as Americans, not part of this political industrial complex, but get together as one nation of people, of individuals who actually are in charge of this, not for gain, not for self-interest, not for self-enrichment, not for anything other than in service to each other and being able to live in peace. It's going to take a little bit to deprogram people from seeing others as on the other side. How do you know they're on the other side? I actually reached out to the Green Party this week and the Libertarian Party. I'm going to try to see if we can work together on some issues. I don't have to agree with them on everything. And guess what? They've got a base. If we sit and we listen and we actually have discussions, we're going to find out that we actually agree on more than we disagree with. And those things that have been set in front of us to argue and debate just to keep us divided, we're going to be able to see those rocks in the road pretty easily and say, you know what, this is just a rock in the road. We don't need to agree on everything. We need to work together because the greater threat is the political industrial complex of lifelong people in office, of people that are in their little cartels, and they're all over the United States. Not just a drug cartel, though they're probably in with the drug cartels in Mexico. It's real easy to look at Mexico and go, ooh, the drug cartels. Guess what? They're in the United States. They're all working together. I have a good source that believes that someone who is standing with the DeVosses right now are the ones that are basically involved in the drug cartels in Mexico. I'm not going to name a name right now, but if you look up who's standing together in supply chains and such, the DeVosses were involved in the supply lines to China.
Well, when they began building a world economy, after when the World Trade Organization was established, part of the redesign of our country, of our economy, was the formation of supply chains. Now, a supply chain is a cartel by definition.
Yes.
And so, and that was encouraged. Well, if you're a cartel, you have a monopoly on some particular product or line of products or group of manufacturers. It's like Walmart is a cartel. They are a cartel, and
you bet they are.
In the 1980s, I didn't realize this, but they put up a satellite network. Well, I think the satellite network was actually put up by the military, and they let Walmart use it to be able to be a supplier for military purposes. But what Walmart did is that they began doing business with China, and they forced their American manufacturers to become suppliers at the China price. Okay, that caused a lot of our manufacturers to move to different places in the world, trying to meet the China price. Well, on the price of labor, you cannot compete with China, period. When they're paying
Well,
their
they've got
people.
slave labor, so of course not. It's like,
Right.
You've got people that are work or die. That probably is, changes your motivation just a little bit.
Right. Well, and when they started outsourcing IT work to India, the difference in the cost of labor, India was a third world country, and they still are by and large a third world country. They have people that, out in their farms, they just go poop in the field. They don't even have outhouses.
I'm gonna expand on that because I was in India for a little bit, and it's not just in the field; it's in the street, in the gutters. People in the United States, if they've never seen it, would be absolutely shocked. Um, I can't even put it into words. Some of the things that you see there in India.
Well,
I'm gonna say something
okay.
really interesting. Check this out. Altacor, look at their logo right there. And I think I've got let's see, Altacor. Hang on a minute. Let me get the right one here. Altacor, here it is. But we also have Altacor Pharmacy. Let's see. I'm going to have to look around to this a little bit.
Look at this, made for U.S. citizens abroad, expats and global citizens.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Those are the World Federalists, and there was a movement that began in the 1940s, and Ronald Reagan was a part of that. He was a World Federalist. But when he ran for the presidency, he was questioned on it, and he said, that he was no longer a World Federalist. Well, I beg to differ. He was and always was a World Federalist.
Well, and I don't know. I mean, we can.
It's greatest regret of my life that I voted for Reagan twice. I had no idea of his background with the Communist Party and World Federalism.
Here you go. This is what I wanted to look at too. This is part of DeVos's. This is a Republican Party right here. We've got Amway, and they just gave $5 million to John James, who is also supply chain guy. I'm just shocked and kind of done with this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, the more you understand about what the world is really about, the less you can participate. The Republican and Democrat parties at the top are guided in their platforms and in their dialogue to keep you within these two lines of thought and not go outside of it. In the United States, for the most part, there is only Democrats and Republicans. And from administration to administration, they change the rhetoric, but they don't change the game plans.
Yeah, so here we go. Look at it. Learn more about. Here we go. That was select your global site for Amway.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of really good videos that I watched a while back that was kind of like, okay, this is kind of damning, but oh, here you go. Chinese Institute Math Chrysanthemum Geome. And let's see what else we have. They had a pretty nice little video a while back that showed their supply chain to China. Amway China, Amway China, China, Chinese, China. Interesting.
IBM moved over to China in, what was it, 1970 something. So IBM has been over in China for decades and decades. Okay, so when we're talking about redesign of systems and of government, big systems, IBM is always at the head of the table.
It's interesting. It's interesting to see how the corporations are all locked together too. Amazing. Well, since Daniel's not going to be on today, and I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I could sit here and talk to you all day long. You know, you've got so much information, and I really, really appreciate. Oh, check this out! I just noticed something on this. Look at Amway India website. There's Russia, there's India, there's all sorts of things here. India initiatives. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I think there's so much that you and I agree on. It's really, let's see, Vanderjack, Reagan, and many other Michigan Republican muckety mucks are all mentioned in Kathy O'Brien's book, Transform Nation. A lot of national stars, including Lee Greenwood, too. It's sick. You know, that brings up a really interesting topic. I actually, I've met some of these people, and I'm going to tell you what. I think some of them are controlled, because when you see somebody who they don't want to be somewhere, and they're on, somebody's got them on a leash, and I'm going to assume that it's the good guys. So with all this said, I think what's been really interesting is to watch when people get in over their head and they think they're doing the right thing, and all of a sudden they're in over their head, and then they realize that, oh my gosh, they've been fraternizing with the enemy. It's getting real. This happens all the time.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to be on your guard and watch what's going on around you, so that you do not step into something you're not prepared to deal with. And I think there's a lot of people out there who have gotten sucked in for promises of riches, wealth, and fame to be captive to the system. Not everybody. Some people jump into it willingly, and they're into this. The interesting part is the Lee Greenwood part to me too, because yeah, I saw something there that I was like, huh, well, that's interesting, because I met him and I thought it was very, very interesting. Like he looked like a guy that was living his last day, if you really want to know the truth. I was kind of like, wow. First of all, he doesn't want to be here, and I can see that. He's here under protest. And second of all, he pretty much was not as happy about life or where he was at as what I would expect him to be, which is my take on it, my observation. I was kind of, I sit back and I watch everybody, and I'm like going, huh, yeah, this isn't exactly what we think it is, but that's okay. He's got a good song, and it was great if it was commandeered by the good guys, and I applaud them. And that's what I say. I think that all of this is education for us to see how bad the world has gotten and what's wrong with us, and make those decisions to say, you know what, I don't want to be part of a globalist community. I do not want to I don't know, have the approval of the powers that be. I only want to follow God, serve God and his nation here. And I'm not saying this is myself, but that's posing those questions that we should all pose and say, do we really want to be involved in a global governance? I'm extra sure the answer to that is no. But
Right.
we need to change the way the United States is done, because the states need to be nations instead of nation states, instead of, the states do, individual states, and shrink the federal government. This is crazy.
No, because the states as individual entities or countries, if you will, that breaks up the United States, which is the objective of the world federalists. So as bad as you think the American government is,
well, it's got to be shrunk.
Yeah, it does have to be shrunk, but it has to be done in such a way that brings the country together. And because of how they've built this global economy for corporations, there are a hell of a lot of people in the United States that have been left behind, the whole traditional base of the Democratic Party. And if you're telling those people, you've got to go starve, sucker, I don't care about you, yeah, we're going to have war.
Well, I guess let me clarify. The states should supersede the federal government and policies, and it's in a constitution compliant way. That's
but the
my
states have been bought by these global corporations in the same way that our federal government has been bought. So you've got to analyze our entire situation.
I agree with that. I'm not disagreeing
yeah,
with you.
Yeah. So you've got to understand the whole thing, and then we can begin to fix it.
I agree with you. I went right to the fixed point, but it's just like all of the federal agencies that are in Michigan and in other states and such, they have to be abolished. They don't even have the right to exist. And if we had a good leader that said, and nope, and nope, and nope, and nope, and I'm giving you, 30 days to find a quick exit, and or 60 days or whatever it would take. You'd have to look at it an individual basis, but put them on notice and start cutting. It's going to take a hatchet person that can get in there and say, and nullify and nullify and nullify and nullify and nullify and bring people to justice. People have to hang for what they've done. There's no two ways about it. This is treason. There's so many people that have committed treason that we can't ignore that. We have to clean house so that we can build on a solid foundation. And that's going back to the original structure with, we have to go back to the original structure. We have to nullify about, 85, 90, I would be open to discussion at 95% of what the government is involved in right now. And then keep it to the battle between good and evil. And then you get rid of this, protected status because I'm a fill in the blank, whatever it is, that's got to go away. And we've got to decide that we are people, we're human beings, that all the divisions culturally and whatever, I don't care how you celebrate your holidays. You can't get two Baptists in the room that celebrate holidays the same, right? It's a myth. You cannot, it's a myth that we all celebrate things the same or culturally that we're the same. We need to be able to sit down with whoever we want to and enjoy life the way they do, the way we do and such. I don't know. It's a long.
I agree with you to a point. Cultural, within our culture, that's right. Different groups celebrate holidays different ways. But when you bring in groups like Muslim groups, you no longer have that cohesive culture with variances between the lines. You bring in a nation that is mobile. Islam is a nation state within a religion. It's its own nation state within a religion.
Well, anything that says capitulate or die needs to be erased. Yes. That's not okay. You don't get to walk into any situation and say you either capitulate or die. I think that's a dividing line for me. I don't care what people do, but when you start coercing or threatening other people, you've just violated the Constitution of the United States, and that is to uphold each other's rights. And it could probably be considered treason at that point in time. Certainly crimes against humanity. But those are all big discussions to have. And I think I want
to say this. One agency that I would get rid of completely, Health and Human Services.
Absolutely.
Cut them off. Just get rid of everybody. Turn all that back to the states.
But yes, absolutely. But you're going to have to realize that they're not you personally, but we are going to have to realize, let me rephrase that there's a lot of kids in foster care. Who's going to volunteer to help and pick up the pieces? How are we going to handle that? And I think that's the states, but we still need people, and the people in the states are compromised in the organizations within the states. So the first step is thorough house cleaning for all the traitors and people who have committed crimes. and it's got to be thorough.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that.
And the systemic corruption has got to be ripped out by the roots. And with what you're talking about with the technocracy and such going on, that ties in beautifully with the elections.
Mm-hmm.
We have no elections, we have selections, we have illusions.
That's right. They choose who runs in the primary, and it's in the primaries where the decisions are made.
That's why we need third parties like the Constitution Party, of which I'm the chair of in the state of Michigan. U.S. Taxpayers Party needs to have a voice, because we need to have another option to go to. And President Trump has been talking about another party. He gets it. I think he knows what's going on. I don't have a lot of I don't have any issues with President Trump, though. I think that they're doing a good job, but they're not playing. They're doing the art of war. They're not coming out and telling everybody what they're doing, and they're using methods of infiltration and subversion of the enemy in order to take the enemy down. I really do believe that, and I do believe that we have hope and that things are going in a good direction. It's just not a headline direction. And so I'm watching what he's doing, going, yeah, that's not exactly the way it should be done, but we're in war, so the Ghost Army's probably active, and yay to the Ghost Army, do it. We're in a war right now, and sometimes things don't go exactly as they ultimately should, but we are in a war. If people don't get a grasp of anything, grasp that we are literally in a war. It's a non-kinetic war, but we are definitely in a war. They're trying to push us to a kinetic war, and that would be bad.
Yeah, I really wish that they would change the language so that people get out of the Republican box, the Democrat box, and understand that above that, that's where these campaigns are formulated. It's really the world federalists opposing the American patriots for national sovereignty.
And they're given the directions, and they're working with CIA, Mossad, GCHQ, all the intelligence organizations in the world, because that's all surveillance state. But you know what? I think going back to the positive side of this, I really do believe that God's in control. And I don't know what I would do if I didn't believe that, that, and I really do believe it. I really do believe that God is in control, and that we're watching the changing of the old guard, but it's not what people think it is. It's not right out there. It's not a headline. It's kind of a spy versus spy thing.
Propagandist versus propagandist.
Yeah, and that's okay. We don't need to know everything right now, because we need to just get out of the. We're learning, but we need to get out of the situation we're in. Okay, there's the Montreux Declaration, and here is the. Let's see, that was the last one you put up. Subversion of America for World Communism. I'll put those in my Telegram channel at BrandenburgForMI. Well, I got to go. I've got a meeting to go to. Do you notice that my voice is weird today?
No, but
it is a little bit, because I kind of lost my voice because I was busy this weekend robbing a train.
Oh no!
And I spend the entire time harassing people, yelling at people, and it's all in good fun, and we have a lot of fun. But come out away from that, and usually my voice is a little scratchy for a couple of days, a little bit lower, because we're having a good time out there, and it's actually a lot of fun. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for inviting me. I very much enjoyed this conversation.
I did a lot. This was an awesome conversation with you, Vicky, and I just really. Oh, Debbie Ringel is on here. Hi, Donna. Wish someone would do a deep dive into what these criminals protesters are costing the taxpayers and cities that are taking place. Instead of the media giving these fools airtime and limelight, there should be nothing but a consistent ticker time stream of cost. Officers on duty, how much overtime pay, how much vehicles destroyed, damage, how much cost to Americans for having to deploy National Guard, military intelligence. Also, let me see if I can, I don't know if I can show this. Let's see if we can put it up there. Oh, this is cool. I've got mad skills. I just learned something new. Funding it. I've got one post in there. It broke it up, and I can't get the rest of it. Debbie.
Well, I have a comment on that. Whatever they're spending, it's a drop in the bucket as opposed to what is being spent through our health and human services system. Within our communities, the health care under Medicaid, the job placement services, the legal system, protections for them. So it just know that it's a drop in the bucket. Whatever it costs us to deport these people will be made up in spades with savings within our social systems, the schools, and everything else.
Yeah. Well, let's say a quick prayer here today, and then we're going to go about our day. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for Vicky, and I ask your blessings would rest mightily upon her and her research and the things that she's doing. Give her a strong voice out there to help educate all of us on the work that she's done over the decades that she's been involved in so many things. I really appreciate the fact that she brings a true perspective of what's going on and what's led us to be here. And I thank you for every word coming out of her mouth. Thank you so much for everyone else who's here listening today. And I ask that you would come alongside of all and give them hope, knowing that we have a bright future ahead of us as long as we decide to work together and eliminate the core of the problem, which is evil and this war against not just the United States, but you. It's a war against love. It's a war against peace. It's a war against everything that we hold dear to us as actual normal people. We thank you so much for walking with us and keeping us safe in all things. And we just want to let you know we love you and we're willing to walk whatever path that you put us on, that knowing that you will give us the strength, the provision to continue on as you carry us. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. With that said, going to my protest, my 2022 protest. Here it is. Ding, 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 ding. Please go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com because I'm the best not conceded who's ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I'd like to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States. Much respect to him, too. President Donald J. Trump in cowboy boots. See who wears them better. We'll get past that. And then we'll go into what we're talking about for real behind that. So just so everybody out there knows, going through this critical thinking stage where we are actually evaluating and looking at what's going on out there, instead of having that visceral reaction of panic, of, oh no, whatever shall we do? It's ridiculous, okay? Stop and think and see if we can come up with some ideas on how to deal with the problems instead of running right off the cliff into the narrative that they want us to believe. We got to stop that. We can't do this anymore. We need to have statesman-like discussions and listening to all sides, whether we agree or we disagree. The way to bring people together is to give them the honor to listen to their views. Not everyone who espouses a view. I know some people that completely believe in BLM because they don't want to see anyone marginalized. They don't realize that these people that are running the show are paid. They're paid activists. They're going after people and trying to get us to fight against each other. We have to be able to sit down and say, have you ever considered this? I'm considering what you're saying. And have you ever considered this? Because this really made an impact on me today and or over the last decade, and change the way we talk to regular people. Now, I'm not saying that we do this to people who are evil. There are just evil people out there. And we have to have the discernment to be able to know the difference. First off, try the diplomacy part of it. And if that doesn't work, well, then we pretty much know who we're talking to. But with that said, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. There's lots of ways of doing it. Get into Vicky's stuff. Look at Technocratic Tyranny site and look at her stuff. Get educated on it so that you can speak with enough information to have a good discussion, not an emotional one, but wow, check out this and look at this, that kind of way, right? There's nothing we have to be afraid of. And it's the minute you feel that emotional reaction or fear, they gotcha. They gotcha. If you're standing strong and you're considering things, but you're really, it comes down to walking with God, you don't go into the fear reaction. You go into, well, let's walk around and evaluate this a minute. And then go through all of the risks that are involved in it. Is there an immediate risk? Generally not, unless you're a fighter pilot. I'm just going to say that. Or somebody who's got a gun pointed at them in the military. Usually there's not a lot of snap decisions that need to be made. Normal people have decisions to be made, but the anticipation of what we have dreamed up in our mind of as the worst is really the worst part of it. When we start thinking and go, oh, okay, I guess there isn't an immediate danger. Then we start thinking and we have a plan. Anyhow, have a great day. Thanks, Vicky. And I'll be on tomorrow for a very short period of time. I'm not going to be on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So if I'm not on the rest of the week, there's a reason for that. I'll probably be broadcasting from a remote location, and it's going to be a fun trip. We'll be talking about real important things this week. Watch the 11th and the 14th because of the events that I know are planned ahead. We need to be mindful and watchful, not afraid. Make sure you have a plan for situations and do enough research so that you don't feel like you're stranded, and we're going to be all walking together into the future. So no fear.